January, you might have noticed. It's the beginning of the new year, and in religious science churches, traditionally in January, we talk about the basic principles of science of mind, and I've been really looking forward to this. It feels to me like such a good time to re-immerse in those teachings and those principles. That's one of the reasons that I'm teaching the Essential Earnest Homes, which is one of the brand new classes from United. Really a wonderful opportunity to kind of, immerse ourselves in the teachings of Ernest Holmes, and it'll be a wonderful class, so I'm looking forward to it. I want to start off by reading this quote to you from Minnie Louise Haskins. She says, "I said to the man who stood at the gate of the year, 'Give me light, that I might tread safely into the unknown.' He said to me, 'Go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. It shall be to you better than a light and safer than a known way.'" If you remember nothing else that I say this morning, here's the essence of what I'm talking about today. At the heart of science of mind, there is one idea. It is the idea that God exists and that God is all there is. That there is not God and, there is God as. And everything, everyone, everything we see, every circumstance, every condition, no matter how nasty it might seem, no matter how incredible it might appear to be, all of it is the manifestation of the divine. All of it is the manifestation of the divine. When, about 100 years ago, there was a British judge named Thomas Troward who was doing lectures in Scotland on what he called mental science. He had actually grown up in the Punjab region of India, which is now Pakistan, and it became later one of the threads of Ernest Holmes' philosophy to follow the teachings of Thomas Troward about mental science. And I think that for Holmes, the idea of how creation comes into being essentially grew right out of Thomas Troward. And so in order to understand the way that religious scientists look at creation and at themselves, we have to go back to the heart of this idea. And what Troward basically said is, first there was God. There was just God. There was no form. There was just the presence. And then there was form. What happened? Something changed. Something moved. What could move when there's nothing in form? The only thing Troward could think of that could move when there's nothing in form to move was thought. And so Troward said, creation is a result of God thinking inside God about God. I like to say that creation is the overflow of love, that the presence of God, the infinite intelligence, the mystery, the creator, the whatever it is, the higher power, the great spirit, or as Ernest Holmes would say, the thing itself. That intelligence, that presence, that beingness was so immense in its delight, in its love, in its experience of beingness that it could not be contained in the formless, and it burst forth into expression. It overflowed into beingness. That it was God's growing experience of itself that overflowed into form, and everything that exists is that overflow. So we don't in religious science believe in God and something else. We don't believe in God and a second power of evil. We don't believe in God and you. That God, which is taught in every religious faith on the planet to be omnipresent, except we might Buddhism, which doesn't look at God as an actual entity kind of a thing. But in most of the major world religions, we see God looked upon as omnipresent. That means what? Everywhere. It does not mean that God comes right up to your skin and then stops. And where you are, there's no God. Right? So God is everywhere except where Thomas is. Or God is everywhere except where Gabrielle is. No. Omnipresent means everywhere. Everywhere. Thomas Troward said this: the infinite must be a unity. You cannot have two infinites. But because it is a single unit, wherever it is at all, the whole of it must be. Now that's an interesting mystery. Wherever it is at all, the whole of it must be. But because it is infinite or limitless, it is everywhere. All spirit is concentrated at any point in space that we may choose to fix our thought upon. All spirit is present at every point. Or as Ernest Holmes put it, there is no spot where God is not. So this is the thing to remember about what I'm saying today. If God exists, if there is an infinite presence of intelligence, then it is what you are, and it is where you are. It means that we are not separate from what we need to know. We're not separate from what we need to be empowered or to be healed of or to be revealed about. We're not separate from it. We have this incredible freedom of beingness that allows us to filter what we are aware of at any given time, what we will let in and what we won't let in. It allows us to hold out of our perception and out of our awareness sometimes what is actually true. Have you ever discovered later that you were wrong about something? About a person, about a situation, and upon getting more information you discovered, oh, I misunderstood that completely. I was wrong about that. That's not how it is at all. But before that moment of awareness, it appeared very true to you the way it was. Yes? You were still acting upon your belief that you knew what was so, and yet you were not correctly perceiving what was so. So in our own existence as human beings, when we come into form into the world as individuals, we look around and we go, oh, it's a whole bunch of people, separate people. But we know that if you look at the universe from the physics standpoint, there isn't separate stuff. It's all one stuff. There aren't separate people and separate planets and separate countries. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. So this appearance of separation, we're pretty sure we're right about that. But it's possible we're not right about that. It's possible we're part of the unity, part of the infinite. We are actually then, here's the weirdest part of it. If all of God is present at every point in God, then all of God is where you're sitting right now. That consciousness that created the universe is present where you are. Do you think that that part of the universe, of the infinite, of the allness of God, that allness that's where you are, is lacking something? Like that omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotentness that is everywhere, every when, in everything. Somehow in you, though, it's not quite right. Somehow in you, it's sick or weak or limited or broken or resistant or incurable or whatever your character flaws are, they're so huge that that infinite is just stuck when it comes to you. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that all it is that great freedom that we have to perceive as much as we're able and willing to let in right now. And as Ernest Holmes said, we manifest the experience of our lives at the level of our understanding, at the level of our willingness, at the level of our ability to embrace it and receive it and know it. I've been noticing recently that it's very easy to subtly, very subtly, put the brakes on in our life and resist letting good in. We don't realize that we're dragging this brake behind us just a little bit to keep things slowed down and feeling kind of normal, so that we don't have to go into the unknown, so that we don't have to let in as much as wants to come to us, because maybe it would be overwhelming, and then what? Imagine being overwhelmed with good. Imagine there being so much good